Employees of IKEA, what are some of the worst family meltdowns you have seen? I was working at the Vancouver IKEA on a Saturday afternoon, which is basically the worst possible time to be in the store if you like calm or personal space. The place was packed, like a sea of shopping carts and stressed adults. The children's play area, small end, was crammed with kids. There must have been close to 100 of them, some being watched by parents through the little windows, others completely unattended, running around like small caffeinated tornadoes. I was stationed near the furniture displays, helping a customer with a bookshelf, when I heard the first panicked shriek. It wasn't unusual to hear some level of chaos coming from small end, but this was different. Almost instantly, I noticed the lights flicker. Then, everything went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in, dim and uneven, but it wasn't enough to illuminate the chaos that was about to erupt. In the darkness, the kids all went absolutely ballistic. Some started screaming, others were running full tilt in every direction, bumping into each other, slamming into the walls and tunnels, and occasionally launching themselves off padded corners like tiny hyperactive acrobats. A few smaller kids had frozen in place, tears streaming down their faces, while older kids tried to lead groups of the terrified ones, forming temporary alliances in the darkness. Parents outside were yelling through the glass, trying to calm their children, but their voices were drowned out by the shrieking and crashing. I could hear a kid scream, "Mommy, I'm lost!" over and over. It was pure chaos, a cacophony of terror and adrenaline. The power outage only lasted maybe 2 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. The smell of sweat, fear, and something vaguely like spilled juice hung in the air. By the time the lights came back on, the scene was like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie. Kids were sprawled across the tunnels, some rubbing minor bruises or scratches, others sitting in the corners staring blankly as if they'd just survived a war. A few had banded together in little makeshift forts inside the play structures, refusing to come out. And then there were the missing ones. A few had apparently slipped through the chaos and into the store itself, hiding among the towering furniture displays. I ran over to check on a cluster of the older kids. They were clinging to each other and had taken a defensive stance as if ready to fend off some imaginary enemy. One boy, probably 7 or 8, looked at me with the kind of blank, thousand-yard stare that makes you question the reality of what you just witnessed. "It's like a war zone in here," he muttered under his breath. I didn't even respond, just noted it mentally while trying to herd the kids back toward the exits. Parents stormed in like a mix of panic and rage, grabbing their children, scolding them, or apologizing to the staff for the mayhem. One mom was desperately waving a half-eaten meatball around like a beacon of hope, trying to convince her son to leave the tunnels. Another dad was yelling at the lights themselves, like somehow IKEA had personally orchestrated this nightmare. I could see our coworkers trying to coordinate the evacuation, but even among the staff, the chaos was almost overwhelming. Walkie-talkies crackled with urgent calls. "Small in status? How many kids accounted for? We need all hands here now!" For a brief moment, it felt like total anarchy, the fluorescent lights above casting long shadows over the scene like a battlefield frozen in time. Eventually, after what felt like hours but was really more like 15 minutes, the kids were rounded up. The parents were half furious, half relieved. We did quick head counts, tried to match children to the correct guardians, and patched up a few minor scrapes with antiseptic wipes from the first aid kit. Some kids were still too stunned to speak, sitting quietly in their parents' laps, refusing to leave the building entirely. A few had even made friends during the panic, holding hands tightly and refusing to let go as they exited together. The aftermath left Small End looking like it had been through a hurricane. Cushions scattered, tunnels partially collapsed from frantic crawling, and a couple of toys were missing entirely. I walked past the display of IKEA furniture on my way to the break room and noticed a small puddle of spilled juice with a single meatball floating in it. I smiled faintly. At least some things survived. Later, talking to my coworkers over coffee, everyone agreed that day was a 10 out of 10. Nothing before, nothing after could possibly compare. The chaos had been spectacular, terrifying, and absurdly memorable. Parents shared stories of how their kids described running from monsters in the dark tunnels, and we laughed, trying to relieve the tension. Even our manager shook her head and admitted that day would go down in IKEA history as the one where Small End became an actual war zone. Despite the madness, the meatballs had been good. Somehow, in the midst of all that chaos, someone had managed to get a few back to the cafeteria untouched, a small miracle amid the carnage. By the time I went home that night, I was physically drained but mentally buzzing. The memory of screaming children, parents panicking, and the surreal quiet in the brief moments of darkness was lodged firmly in my mind. Every time I pass a play area now, I can't help but picture it. Dark tunnels, kids screaming, 100 tiny warriors hiding from imaginary enemies, and the faint smell of spilled juice lingering in the air. It was, in every sense, a perfect storm of IKEA chaos.